Hi, I'm Karlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Karlin Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, karlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope you are all having a glorious Friday. Now, happy hour is here, guys. We did it. We made it through another week. And, here's the thing. I always like to really do my best to surprise you guys with what types of training we're going to watch on Fridays. If you're new to Happy Hour is a stream. It is kind of like our general education stream about what the woke left actually teaches and what they believe and stuff like that. Not to be confused with tomorrow, which is Socialism Saturday, because Socialism Saturday is like our advanced AP course. But if you're new to the woke and you've never watched woke training with us before, and you're accustomed to seeing TikTok videos and clips on the internet and stuff like that, Happy Hour is going to be a time where we sit down, we have some drinks, and I've got some great drinks today. I'm so excited. And we watch a woke training from start to finish. When I say a training, I mean a conference presentation, a classroom presentation, an educational seminar that someone who is a woke leftist has given to a community of people. We're talking an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and we actually sit down and we watch the entire training from start to finish. We watch the boring bits, we watch the cringy bits, because in between the boring bits and the cringy bits, we're going to hit on the golden nuggets that tell us who the woke left really are and what they really believe, and shows us directly what they are teaching other people when they don't think people like us are looking. And so I really do my best when we're doing happy hour streams, and certainly Socialism Saturdays as well. But for happy hours, I try to find presentations that haven't been shown anywhere else, that sometimes are on rinky-dink YouTube channels that you've never heard of before, that are on, like, college YouTube channels that are college trainings or teacher professional development trainings or things like that. I really do my very best to uncover the dark dystopian underbelly that no one else on the internet has shown you yet, so that you guys get to see it here first. Because as you know, we are years ahead of where other people are in understanding the woke left. Literally years. And it's because we sit down and watch their trainings. Well, the other day, I came across a massive, massive, massive list of hundreds of trans and queer conferences directed at youth all over the country. There are people there. I was looking for conferences to infiltrate for SpyStream, and I uncovered a list of over 150 trans and queer conferences that are taking place all over the country and that have been taking place all over the country for years. They're hosted by universities, they're hosted by nonprofits, they're hosted by social justice organizations, they're hosted by some major corporations that you wouldn't think would host these things. And by the way, this is why the left is so far ahead of us, right? Because they are constantly doing training and outreach and education, and they do it every which way. The fact that I found a list of 150 conferences specifically targeting trans and queer youth, that's a little mind blowing to me. But in addition to that list, what I've been doing is slowly investigating each of these organizations. And what I do is I look for their YouTube channels, because the woke left loves to brag about their training. They put it all online. How lucky for us that they do. And in the process of doing that investigation, and you guys are going to be shocked at some of the things I've uncovered just in the past 24 hours since finding this list. This list is like a massive treasure trove like I've never seen before, and it's going to take me a while to work my way through all of it because there's so much. But one of the very first things that I found was the Queer Christian Fellowship Conference, called Q for queer. And this is a conference, an event, and resource for queer Christians that happens every single year. If you are in the greater Albuquerque, New Mexico area, you can attend the next Queer Christian Conference next January. So, you still got a little bit of time, but that's all right. And it's got all sorts of resources and stuff like that. And nothing wrong with being a gay Christian or a trans Christian. I have no issue with that. But you guys all know there is a big difference between LGBT and Q, and it's the Q that gets us into the problems, because LGBT are all identities. Q is a far left political ideology that is closely tied to Marxism. Marxism, 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 Marxism. And so I went on their YouTube channel, as I'm prone to do. By the way, guys, if you're looking at these things and you're looking for their YouTube channels, actually, they didn't have it here. I thought they would have it there. That's all right. That's all right. Because I got their YouTube channel here. And here it is. We'll look at their general YouTube channel. So I went onto their YouTube channel and I started scrolling down. And all the videos that they have everything. They have a class on sexual ethics for queer Christians. They have sacred transgressions, beyond the binary, bi and pan stories, the trans experience. They've got LGBTQ youth ministry. They've got what else do they have? Every parent needs to process, for those parents who might be struggling to accept their new non-binary child. They have all sorts of presentations, but I gravitated to one of them, and I think you're going to understand why. And today's presentation, as well as Hunter Biden's Coke Stash super chat is dedicated to bot because Hunter Biden's Coke Stash likes to pay me money to send love letters. But there is one presentation on this list that I, just jumped out at me. I couldn't resist. And that's this one. And it is called, Does Jesus Have a Gender? And today's happy hour is dedicated to Queen Beth of the chat because I knew that Beth in particular would be thrilled with today's selection. The description is as follows. This breakout offers a way of connecting New Testament cultural concepts with contemporary gender concepts to help queer Christians in discerning new things God is doing in their personal lives in society more broadly. Together, we will engage in dialogue about gender diversity in ways that promote belonging and understanding of differences. This session also promotes and encourages freedom to be one's whole self, as gender identity gets fractured into increasingly fine-grained categories and subcategories that may cause confusion for some. And this presentation is presented. Trigger warnings. There are trigger warnings for sexual assault, abuse, sexism, and misogyny. I like a little misogyny on a happy hour, I do have to say. The presentation is presented by Dr. Wes Eli King. Dr. Wes's pronouns are they, she, and he. And they teach core informatics to undergraduates in the iSchool of the University of Washington. Where have we seen the University of Washington before show up? Does anyone remember? I remember, but I'm quizzing you guys to see if you're paying attention. Where have we seen someone from the University of Washington show up before? Let me know in the chat if you remember. They have been at the University of Washington since 2013, both as a graduate student and as an instructor. They recently completed their dissertation, A Match Made in Heaven, Queer Christians and Dating Apps, and teach courses in internet dating. Apparently, you can take internet courses. Courses in internet dating at the University of Washington now. That's just great. AI, robots, and look, they're teaching courses on transcending religion. Isn't that interesting? They have a keen interest in science fiction and imagining futures that celebrate the beauty and diversity of humanity. You can follow them on Twitter and Instagram. Hunter Biden's Coke Stash says, okay, well, I can't let you down, bot. Hi, Reagan. Hunter Biden's Coke Stash is playing the field in my chat through super chats with me. He is winning the hearts and minds of all the ladies in the chat. So who is happy? Who is excited that we are going to watch a presentation that only has 84 views on it from the Queer Christian Fellowship called Does Jesus Have a Gender? You're all welcome. You're all welcome. I know you're excited. This is the kind of service you can only get at happy hour on Fridays, guys. This is what I do for you. This is the type of research and work you support. And I think we're going to have a grand old time today. And I just want to ask the Christians in the chat, because I know I have at least one or two Christians who still follow me, even though I rag on Christians all the time. For all of the Christians in the chat that understand that I don't hate you, I just sometimes disagree with your lifestyle. I need all of you to come to the table today. I need all of the Christians in the chat to help me to debunk this presentation today. All right? Because whether or not I agree with your lifestyle, we are all on the same team. And I never did Bible study or anything like that. I know enough to be dangerous, but it is possible that there will be Christians in the chat that know more than me about what this guy is saying. And I just really want to encourage all the Christians. This is your time to shine. I want all the Christians today to be the absolute best representation for a gender binary Jesus. as we possibly can be. It's great. It's great. Oh, Terry is both British and Catholic. Two things I don't like. Terry, I don't agree with any of your lifestyles, okay? It's all right. You're still welcome here. Guys, that's what we're doing on Happy Hour today. We are going to watch Does Jesus Have a Gender? We are going to have some drinks. We are going to have some laughs. We are going to talk about it, and we're going to see what's going on. Now, as a reminder, a couple things coming up this week. Number one, if you missed yesterday's presentation, which was a keynote at a gender and sexuality conference at Lewis and Clark College, you can find the highlights on my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. And in particular, you can find the moment where the trans professor of history advised a giant room full of college students that self-administering your hormones is a really good idea and probably less dangerous than going to a doctor. I don't think that was really responsible, I have to say, for a associate professor of history at Johns Hopkins University to go to Lewis and Clark College and speak to a room of students in which they told them that do-it-yourself hormones are probably just fine. I have the clip of that on my Substack right now. You can also see the clip from the other day where we got a real live a socialist professor to define fascism for us. Like, who saw that coming? And you'll get much more on my Substack. Now, guys, of course, my Substack is always free to subscribe to. But if you do want to support the work I'm doing and get access to some of the perks that I'm about to mention, you can sign up for $8 a month or $80 a year. That does help keep me in business. You get access to my premium content. You get access to 2 private, unrecorded Zoom calls with me and my community every single week. You get access to Bitchcraft tomorrow. You get access to the supporter Discord to join us for movie night on Sunday. You get all sorts of perks. And best of all, you keep me in business because I'm completely funded by you. I have no loyalties to anyone else except for you guys. My only job is to bring you receipts, tell you the truth, show you what's going on in the world. And I will do my part as long as you show up and do yours. And I greatly appreciate it. Naruto says, Carlyn, I'm sorry. I know. Our favorite narcissist has, well, he could never let us down because our favorite narcissist is infallible. And I'm sure he has a very good reason for not putting Candace Owens on his narcissism list. And I'm sure he knows better than I do. And I'm sure that he is the ultimate judge of who needs to be diagnosed as a narcissist on the internet. And in his infinite wisdom, he did not include Candace Owens on the list. And, I'm a little disappointed personally, I have to say, but we cannot question the wisdom of the all-powerful ultra narcissist. There is rhyme to his reason. There is a reason for his plan. He knows better than all of us. And so I guess we just have to wait patiently with bated breath for someday when HG Tudor finally and at long last diagnoses Candace Owens' ass as being the obvious narcissist that she is. But in the meantime, we don't need the ultra narcissist to tell us that Candace Owens is a narcissist because we already know Candace Owens is a narcissist. But I do appreciate your service. Naruto, thank you so much. Hunter Biden's Coke Stash says, Carlyn was late to the chat. What is beer? I haven't gotten to the beer yet. Relax. We're going to get there in a second. We also got Naruto. I found a song called Queer Christian on YouTube. Oh, that's nice, Naruto. Send it to me over DM and we'll see. I know. Candace was too much of low-hanging fruit for such a great man as HG Tudor. She's too easy, is the thing. Diagnosing Candace is just too easy. It's like not even a challenge for him. He would have done it in like 3.5. His intellect needs something much more challenging than diagnosing Candace Owens. But we can always cross our fingers and hope that he gets to it someday. And I'm not giving up hope. There's always hope. Always. Caleb, thank you for the super chat. Oh, excellent. Caleb, I'm so glad you're here. I'm a Christian pastor who was raised by 33 lesbians. You were raised by 33 lesbians? That's like a lot of lesbians, Caleb. And one gay man who were professors and activists, and even they would be turned off by the extremist political ideology of today. Caleb, I'm going to be trusting you to help us decipher this presentation, and I feel slightly sorry that you were raised by 33 lesbians because that just seems like a lot to me. But you know what? You turned out okay. You're here. Let's just, we're ready to go. All right, guys, before we get into that, a couple more things. I just want to remind everyone you can get some cool merch over in the Unwoke Art store. Of course. Oh, two lesbians and one gay man. That makes so much more sense, Caleb. Anyway, if another way you can support the work I'm doing is by heading over to the Unwoke Art store, which is at unwokeart.com, where you can get the only original, now Chinese knocked off t-shirt, the Trump Indictment Victory Tour t-shirt. You can also get to the All Tears Are Tasty line. Of course, I do have my own All Tears Are Tasty tumbler right here, and it looks great. It came out so good. And you can get that there as well. But today I want to bring your particular attention to the socialists always lie t-shirt. I myself have one of these t-shirts coming to me right now. I'm really excited about it. It looks great. This was inspired by Socialism Saturday, and I think it just sends a very clear message that all of us can get behind, which is socialists always lie. Obviously, you can get this t-shirt in a bunch of different colors, including Barbie pink, two forms of pink, because the women wanted pink. You can get it in purple, you can get it in gray, you can get it in navy, you can get it in blue, white, charity pink, three forms of pink I put on there just for good measure. But I got the classic black because I think it looks the coolest. Anyway, you can get that over on unwokeart.com. The Socialists Always Lie t-shirt is available now, and you can check that out. Now, when you do head over to my Substack and sign up as a supporter, you're going to get access to a couple things. Number one thing you're going to get access to is Bitchcraft. Bitchcraft is something that we do in my community on the second Saturday of every month. And guess what? The second Saturday of the month is tomorrow. Yay, us. So that means we are gathering in a private Zoom at 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow to craft. You can, of course, I will be knitting as the far most superior of all craft, but all crafts are welcome. You can quilt, you can sew, you can draw, you can paint, you can crochet, I guess, if you want to be that type of person. You can just come hang out if you want to as well. But we will be crafting tomorrow at 3 p.m. for a private, unrecorded, just like open kind of like bitch sesh. Come join us in the Zoom. You will be sent out the link tomorrow on the Substack, Locals, Patreon, wherever you support my work. And I do really appreciate it. And then, of course, on Sunday, we have coming up, this is very exciting. Not only is it Reagan's belated birthday pick? Everyone wish a happy belated birthday to Reagan. Not only did Reagan pick out our movie for movie night on Sunday at 8 p.m., but this is the 1 year anniversary of movie night. We have watched 50 movies in my supporter Discord over the last year, and movie night is great. We get together, there's movie trivia. Jennifer does a great job running and organizing movie nights. Thank God for Jennifer. Shout out to Jennifer. We have discussions about the movies. It is just a great kind of like Sunday evening activity. We watch all sorts of different things. And Reagan picked out this Sunday's selection, which is Inception. And we're going to be watching that on Sunday in the supporter Discord. And again, if you sign up as a supporter on my Substack, on my Locals, or on my Patreon, this is stuff that you will all get access to. And I hope that you can all come and join us tomorrow for Bitchcraft at 3 p.m. or on Sunday for movie night at 8 p.m. We're going to have a great old time. All right, guys. Now, of course, we have one more order of business before we learn if Jesus has a gender or not. And it's happy hour, so I got to get some beer. And this is a very special beer day. Okay, there's no voting today. Sorry. This is a very special beer day because the pumpkin beers have arrived. I have a treasure trove of fall drinks, and I just kind of want to introduce you to some of the things that you can find in your local craft beer store today. Hang on, let me grab my cooler. Now, the reason there is no voting is because, quite literally, when I went to the beer store, they had just delivered the pumpkin beer. And so I only have one selection that's actually cold. And that selection is going to be a great beer because you can find it almost anywhere. And that's going to be Shipyard Pumpkinhead. Shipyard Pumpkinhead is it's available in supermarkets. You can find it all over the place. It's a brewery out of Portland, Maine. They have a more alcoholic version of this called Smash Pumpkin, but this is their standard kind of pumpkin ale, and it's really effing good. If you are just looking for a good kind of like supermarket intro level pumpkin beer that actually does taste like pumpkin, Shipyard Pumpkinhead is going to be a great choice, and that's what we're going to be drinking today. And guess what? I like it so much we're drinking it out of the Shipyard Pumpkinhead glass that my husband and I got when we went to the Shipyard Brewery in Portland, Maine, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. But it was a great time, and we got a glass, and so I'm going to be drinking it out of that. That's going to be Shipyard Pumpkinhead, and that's what I'm going to be drinking, at least to start us off for right now. But I want to show you some other stuff too. And these beers are cooling right now, so I might be drinking them before the day is over. But I got some other cool stuff. Oh, hang on. Okay. The beer that I'm most excited about, and if you have an opportunity to try this, you absolutely should, is Southern Tier Pumpkin. Pumpkin is the best pumpkin beer that I have ever had. It is effing amazing. Pretty much everything that Shipyard does is good. Like, I've never had a bad Shipyard beer before, but Pumpkin is an 8.6% alcohol beer that tastes like pumpkin pie. I stockpile this stuff every single year when it comes out because it is so effing good. I'm talking it tastes exactly like pumpkin pie, except it'll get you really effing drunk. So if you get a chance to try Pumpkin, definitely give it a try. Totally worth it. They also have a new varietal out this year, and I haven't tried this one yet, but I had to, which is Caramel Pumpkin, which is also an Imperial, and I don't know what it's going to be like, but we're going to give it a try. Now, some other varieties I wanted to make you aware of, and again, I'm probably going to be drinking these tomorrow for Socialism Saturday, but you guys know I do love a good cider, and my favorite cider is from 1911, because 1911 ciders, I can't explain it. The can just feels really nice and the cider is really good. And 1911 cider donut cider is one of the most amazing cider donut, like amazing ciders in general that I've ever had. It is so effing good. There are a couple other cider places that do cider donut ciders, but this was my favorite by far last year. I'm so excited that they're back, and so I wanted to show you that's out now too. I highly recommend trying this if you find it. And a new cider, I'm really excited to try this. Check this out. They made a candy corn cider. I had to get it. Candy corn cider. It's probably going to be sweet as hell, but I don't even care because fall beers are here. Fall beers are the best. And I can't wait for these beers to cool down a little bit so I can try some of them. But for right now, I'm going to get my Shipyard Pumpkinhead, which is just a nice light pumpkin beer. We're going to put it in my Shipyard Pumpkinhead glass. And I'm going to say cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. Oh, don't, fuck! Of course. Spilled it all over my keyboard. Hang on. Do I have any napkins? Of course I don't. Oh, here we go. Ah! Hang on. Paper towel time. Spilled it all over my desk. That's all right. Totally worth it. All right, guys, if you're drinking something fun, please let us know in the chat what you're drinking. In the meantime, I'm going to say Beth is ready to go. She's armed and loaded in defense of Jesus. Beth, you are quite literally doing... Hang on. Oh, there's a whole pile of napkins. Beth, you are quite literally doing the Lord's work today, and we salute you. Hunter Biden's Coke Sash says, happy birthday, Reagan. Another love note. And then Terry says, being British, which I adore, I have a cup of tea. A cup of tea. All right, Terry, I guess you can stay. It's fine. All right, guys, that is all I have for beer. I have my beer pretty much poured, and I don't care if I spilled it on my desk. It's delicious, okay? Cheers. I've only spilt beer on my keyboard like 2 or 3 times, John. It's fine. And one of those times it exploded, okay? I can't be held responsible for that Beetlejuice beer. It exploded everywhere. It was like on the other side of my desk, even. Anyway, let's get this party started, guys. We have a lot of learning to do. Mount that like button for me if you are ready to learn if Jesus has a gender or not. Oh, God. This is going to be amazing. I've never been excited. I've never been so excited to learn about God before. All right, guys, let's get this party started. Oh, hang on. Jesus is in the chat. Jesus, how are you today? I did see Jesus come by in the chat. There we go. Hi, Jesus. We're really glad you're here. I hope I'm not being blasphemous, Jesus. It's not my fault. It's the queer Marxist fault. All right, let's get this party started, guys. Don't smite me, Jesus. Don't do it. Is he talking? Oh, no, I hear sound now. They're trying. They're setting up. Beer is so good. Shipyard should give me a sponsorship.
Hello and welcome. Going to give people a few more minutes to join in, and then we'll get started with conversation.
Community over conformity. Jesus and gender in the Gospel of John. Five captions on,
We
yes.
need closed captioning. It is available. Subtitles are enabled.
Do we think West King is
Reminder
trans?
It is live subtitling, so it is not perfect, especially when we start talking about things like queer things.
It seemed to work just fine for queer. I like this person's chair. I'll say that. I like their chair a lot. I should get a chair like that. I should get a big throne. Victor almost bought me a throne one time, and I was like, Victor, I don't got room for a throne.
Let's go ahead and get started.
But now I kind of want one.
My name is Dr. Wes Eli King. That is my now name. I teach at the University of Washington.
Now name? What's a now name?
Of Information, and I teach undergraduate courses on informatics.
I want Dr. Evil's share.
I recently completed my PhD at the University of Washington, and my research for my dissertation was on LGBTQ plus Christians and their use of dating apps. And
hang on, we got a member chat from Half Orc Fighter. Thank you for being a member of the channel for 24 months, Half Orc Fighter. Drinking Crown Royal Vanilla and Dr. Pepper. I suspect I'm going to need to watch this. You like Crown Royal Vanilla and Dr. Pepper? Those seem to be like contradictory flavors to me, but if you're enjoying it, more power to you.
I am a supporter of the Believer app. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. I have my water bottle with all the Believer stickers. They are
is the Believer app the queer Christian dating app? Isn't that funny? They called it the Believer app.
A sponsor of the conference, and I'm excited to be here today to talk with you a little bit about Jesus and gender. And I entitled this talk, Community Over Conformity. And it's really going to be
No shit.
interactive in a lot
Huh.
of ways. And I've
Pro tip.
noticed that
I wouldn't have guessed that.
I don't have the capacity to do breakout rooms.
That's just too
I guess I
bad.
should check in with the operations person here if that's an option for us at all. But if not, we will just have a lively discussion here in the room, I hope. And this would be, it's way more fun when it's interactive. So that's all I have to say about that. And hopefully we can get some good ideas sharing between all of us. One of my approaches to teaching and learning is constructionist in the sense that together we construct knowledge. So as I've heard, your mics and cameras are disabled because this is being conducted in a webinar format. And so you will have to participate in the chat. So that's not a problem at all. And you'll just have to be good at typing in your answers. And I've been doing this for a while, teaching in Zoom University. I teach about 340 students a quarter, undergraduates, and it's quite fun doing that on Zoom. So I must confess, and I'm saying this to all of you who are in the room, because you are the people that I was really looking forward to experiencing community with this weekend. And I know many of us are grieving that we are not able to meet in person yet again. And so I just want to share my own condolences if any of you are experiencing that grief, as well as let you know that I am with you in that. And so hopefully together we can hold space for that grief that we're experiencing, while also embracing the opportunity that we have to be with each other, even in this format. And I'm stopping sharing for just a minute here because I really don't want you to be just looking at a slide while I'm thinking so personally about this. Community is very important to me. And when we think about God making a way where there is no other way, community and conformity are key ideas in that. And many of us have had our way to being ourselves in the world blocked because of ideas of conformity that are policed and enforced and legitimated through the authorizing of these ideas using biblical texts. And I do not believe that is the purpose of our historical, scriptural, spiritual influence of the biblical texts. And community is a core concept that I see.
Oh yeah, that's a woman.
In the
sorry.
larger story, in
That's
the larger tradition.
Well, I guess they
of
use all the
Christianity.
pronouns, so I
And
guess
so
you
my
could say
hope
woman.
was to be with you in
A
person,
they, a she, and
to
a he.
facilitate
They are all God's children.
interactions between you all, as well as with
That
you
is a
all
great
and
chair,
myself. But here we are in Zoom community, and I am thrilled and honored to be here.
They still have
with
boobs and
you.
everything.
And I'm glad to hear that that some of you are moving into acceptance. I feel like I've gotten there today as well.
I do like the glasses.
And
I
I'm
do.
very,
I will say that.
very grateful to be here with you and to be thinking about making a way for understanding gender in light of our.
I really need to get a chair like that. I need a new chair, like no one's business. I've had this chair for years. I was supposed to get a new chair like 3 years ago. I bought one on a crowdfunding campaign and it never got done. Whatever. I need a new chair. Anyway, Sarah's asking what year this was, and this was August 15th, 2022. So this was almost 1 year ago today. Almost. Perfect timing.
understanding of Jesus. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen
That's a good
here.
point. If I get one of those chairs, it's got to be
and
red.
Make sure it's enabled for everything. And here we go. So one of the reasons that I like to talk about Jesus and gender is I believe that understanding how Jesus may have interacted with gender roles might help us to better imagine how we can interact with prevailing cultural constructs of gender in our time. I first wrote a paper on this topic of Jesus and gender in the Gospel of John, and I first presented this work at the Society of Vineyard Scholars. And not at the time, it was not affirming and welcoming, and it still is wrestling with that particular notion in the Vineyard denomination.
What is the Vineyard denomination?
However,
What is that?
A well-received conversation. And I think it's important, regardless of where we are in our understanding of Christianity and of Jesus and of the Bible, that we continue to have these conversations, not just me preaching to the choir, but also I choose to continue to stay engaged in conversations with those who may not be as accepting and as affirming as I am. So I am excited to talk about how we understand gender today, as well as how Jesus might have understood it in the past. So first of all, I think we need to start off from ground zero. And I set this up for breakouts, but since we don't have breakouts, I'm going to invite you to discuss this in the chat. So, think about if you're attending this conference in the room with another person, which I know some people are. It's wonderful. I see some names on the chat there that are 2 people. Go ahead and take a minute to maybe talk with each other, and then type in your ideas of how you think about what is gender. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and see about setting up a timer here. I'm really good at setting up timers for my students, even though y'all are not my students. It's still
Wait, you expect us
helpful.
to sit here for 7 minutes while you guys talk in the chat? That doesn't seem
I
fair.
can even won't be as good as broadcasting Spotify.
We'll fast forward.
Don't
worry about it.
Work on presenting and all of that. I've had trouble with it lately, but I can play it on my phone.
I just want to point this out, because we are now, we are wrapping up in a couple of months our 3rd straight year of Happy Hour. What that means is that we have watched hundreds, literally hundreds of presentations. Thousands of hours of our time has been dedicated to watching trainings given by the woke left. And in the vast majority of those trainings, they don't know how to use technology. They're generally not very interesting trainings. They are not engaging. They're not charismatic. The technology always fails. They're always hemming and hawing about how put upon they are to have to do the presentation in the first place. And the reason I bring this up is that the woke left suck as teachers. They're really bad. I didn't realize. For people who don't know my background, I do corporate training. I did corporate training for a long time. I used to do much more of it than I do now because I'm doing this now. But I didn't realize how different and I was as a corporate trainer until I started watching woke leftist training videos and found out they really suck at training, or I'm just exceptional. And I don't actually think that's the case. I think I'm pretty good, but I think they just really suck. My point here is this. Even though they suck at trainings, they do a lot of them. They do conferences all over. They have classes all over. They have conventions. They have workshops. They have all these organizations that are always and perpetually, every single day of the week, doing these trainings. And my point is that they win not because they're amazing at what they do, because they suck at what they do. They win because they show up. A person who shows up and sucks at something is still superior to a person who does not show up but would be really good if they did. The reason that these people win is that they show up. They show up consistently. They show up every single day. That is exactly right, RJ. All conservatives would have to do is show up. My empty water bottle just fell off the desk. That's all right. All conservatives would have to, I was banging on my desk. All conservatives would have to do is show up and they would win because they would be better than this. Always keep that in mind, guys. A mediocre person who shows up is still going to do better than an amazing person who doesn't show up. Oh, I thought I hit play. Ah, I did.
So if any of you teach at all, one of the things that I found is helpful and interesting is I try to use music as a timer instead of actually setting a timer. And
I thought the beer went flying too, Myriad. I was freaking out for a second. I was like, no. Guys, you got to stop judging things based on views on YouTube. You really, really do. It's a good point, but this video only has 50 views. How many people are they really reaching? The video is not the people who have seen this. The conference are the people who have seen this. Every time you guys say, that video doesn't have any views, you're missing the point. This presentation was presented at a conference with hundreds of registrants, thousands of registrants. We have no idea. This presentation probably lives in many other places. This person has already said that they just taught 300 students in their college classes in the last semester. So stop judging things based on YouTube views. You don't know. People do that to me all the time. They're like, you only got this many views on YouTube. Well, do you know how many platforms that video's on? Do you know how many thousands of more? If I put a video on Substack, do you know how many more thousands of views that video gets on Substack that are never going to register on YouTube? Like, you don't know. The same with Twitter, the same with anything else. Just because it only has a couple of views on YouTube doesn't really mean anything because the content was not originally created for YouTube. Are they literally just reading the chat?
we're not going to take the full 7 minutes. So we'll just give you a few minutes to type in your ideas there.
All right. Well, we're obviously not going to sit here and watch them listen to music in the chat. They're literally just typing and chatting. Holy shit.
A little bit more.
And to the views discussion as they're making their way through this, the fact that again, they're showing, let's just say that 84 people are the only people who ever saw this. That is still 84 more people than are seeing the right's version to this because the right isn't creating a version of this. The right is speaking to 0 people. They're speaking to 84 people. They're still speaking to 84 times the people that the right is speaking to, which is 0.
Of whether I'm asking about gender identity, gender roles, gender expectations, or physical gender. And isn't that part of the problem? Do we even know what we are talking about? As Shari says, gender is confusing and messy. I understand it as a societal cultural construct, and a number of you have brought up this idea of a social construct or a societal construct or cultural construct, and I think this is very relevant and important for us to think about the ways that our understanding of our bodies and how to be a human with a particular kind of body in society, in culture, is constructed, right? As I said, like, I like to construct this knowledge together here in this room.
Exactly, Rottweiler.
And that's what goes on in societies and in culture in general, right? We agree upon things, we construct our understanding of things together. So we have Mother MJ, and I was like, oh, hell no, that's great, MJ, thank you. And let's see, what are we going to call our ordained reverends, etc. I love what you all have been sharing in the chat here, and so I'll highlight a few that I think are interesting. And I don't want you to think that just because I didn't mention your chat that I don't think it's interesting, but there's a lot of good stuff in here. So take the time to read through it if you've already posted. Thinking about gender as a form of control, it's interesting to have that idea because I was just participating in a Center for Applied Trans Studies symposium earlier today, and talking about those power dynamics and how it is so important to keep power in mind.
Did you guys know I was perusing this person's Twitter feed today? Talking about the 84 people again and like the views. I was perusing this person's Twitter feed today, and what I found out is this person retweeted someone who was announcing that they had just signed a deal with Duke University Press to publish a journal on queer and trans religion. Now, how many people are going to read the Duke University Press journal on queer and trans religion, which is going to be an academic journal? Well, I don't know, but they're out there making it. They're having queer trans symposia all over the place. It is almost overwhelming to me how much content and how much training and how much education these people actually create, because it goes deep, guys. They're doing conferences all over the place. They're doing workshops all over the place. They're writing journal articles all over the place. They're creating books. They're creating courses. They're creating this. They're creating that. They create the other thing. Like, you could spend, and I literally have spent days deep diving into the sheer volume of content that they are creating. And so even if one thing only gets a couple of views, if you create several thousand of those things that are only getting a couple of views, that is several thousand people that you're reaching, even though individually those things only get a couple of views.
When we're thinking about concepts like gender and sex and how power is always circulating and flowing, and it's not necessarily something one person possesses power and
And
holds it over
academic
another.
journals end up being part of the
However,
curriculum. That's right, Sarah.
power is given, power is taken, power is used, and power is a part of our way of.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Rottweiler. Sun Tzu, when you're weak, project strength. When you're strong, project weakness. These Marxists don't boast YouTube views like influencers. Oh, God, Rottweiler? That is such a great point. That is such a great point. Because they don't need to. Because a lot of these things too, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of these things are localized. So they're all focusing on like local bookstores, local locally printed journals, local meetings, local meetups, local groups, right? They're focusing on the people that they can actually get in their car and drive to see. And I think that does actually make a difference. When you're talking about changing hearts and minds and engaging people and really teaching people, I do think it does make a difference to actually show up in person. I think it's much more effective in person than it usually is online. And they don't usually now they put it online, but they don't advertise this stuff. I really have to dig. They only advertise this stuff to friendly voices. I have to dig to find every single one of these presentations. There's a reason for that. Really good point, Rottweiler. Thank you. Kaiwan says, think locally and act locally. That's what they do. That's exactly right.
Knowing in the world today. And so I think it's very important to keep those things in mind. And then, some people talked about social roles, and I think this is very important. So it's not just about a social construct, but oftentimes a lot of the kind of early research on gender that was, very much limited to like male and female was looking at roles. And then there was this connection between roles and our brains and roles and our bodies and other things like that. So gender identity, gender expression, gender or sex assigned at birth, all of these things make up big parts of how we as a society today think about gender. A number of you talked about like the confusion, things like that, and maybe bringing in some other metaphors that are not so binary. Van identifies as gender fluid, and I identify as gender queer and gender fluid.
Of
and
course.
I'm
Of
getting a
course.
tattoo worked on later today, so it's just started here. And it's going to be the gender queer flag. So it'll have a purple band and a white band and a green band. I tend to like those better than the gender fluid flag. I don't.
By the way, the woke left consider modifying your body to be the ultimate act of political resistance. So getting a tattoo is considered to be like you're branded. That's what it is. It is a brand. Now, getting trans surgery, especially if you're getting the boobs cut off, so you have those little scars, that's like. So I have these scars on my shoulder. You can't really they're faded now because I need to do this again because scars fade over time. But I have a series of 3 bumps on my 3 little tiny scars on my shoulder. Those scars are from doing Cambo frog. Does anyone know what Cambo frog is? Let me tell you this. This is when I was really into doing like sacred medicine. Um, Cambo frog is something that tribes in the Amazon do, where essentially, I swear there's a point to this. We're going to round it back. Where essentially there are these frogs, they're like tree frogs in the Amazon. They catch the tree frogs, they scrape this stuff that's like poison off of the tree. I wonder if I can find it on my Instagram. They scrape the poison off the back of the tree frogs. You guys are gonna love this if I can actually find it. And the poison, essentially what they do, so they have the poison from the back of the tree frog, and they take a little stick that looks, well, I don't really have one handy. They take a little stick and they light it on fire. And then they blow it out and they take the stick that has just been on fire and they make 3 dots in your shoulder, or it could be in your leg or anything like that. It hurts like you have never fucking like when I did Cambo Frog, I was afraid of doing Cambo Frog because I was like, I am not getting stuck in the arm with a fire stick, which is exactly what it is. And it hurt, and my friend who had done it before, she was like, Carlin, this it doesn't hurt any worse than getting a tattoo. I was like, really? It doesn't hurt any worse than getting a tattoo? She's like, nope, you have tattoos, you'll be fine, you'll survive. Let me tell you what, getting stuck with a fire stick in the arm hurts far more than getting tattooed. Anyway, after they stick you with the fire stick in the arm, they take the frog poison that they scraped off the frog's back and they put it on the holes that are now in your arm from where they stuck the fire stick in your arm. And then you let the poison sit there, and then you get really sick. I didn't throw up a lot, but I almost passed out. I did not throw up though. I kind of wish I had, but I didn't. Um, Anyway, the reason I bring this up, and I'll look for the picture and see if I can find it later. The reason I bring this up is having Cambo frog scars. That is a sign of a warrior. Like if you're in the Amazon and you have Cambo scars, like it's like respect, right? Because it sucks. You feel amazing afterwards, but it sucks. I bring this up because for queer people, and this is in a book, one of their books that I read. For queer people, having trans surgery and those scars that they get when they cut off their boobs, it's the same thing. It's like they have made the ultimate political act by actually modifying their body and having scars with it. So it's kind of like the ultimate act of commitment. So tattoos, I guess, like are a brand, but it's like the real act of commitment for these people are when you actually start having trans surgery. And that is your signal that you are in the club. You are in the true believer club.
Remember what those colors are, but I decided to make my genderqueer flag fluid, so it's got drips and drops. So there's my gender fluid, genderqueer, that's going to be right there on my wrist. And so gender is a concept that I think we're very maybe confused about. I remember back in the day, so it wasn't too long ago, but some of you may have heard of Mark Driscoll and Mars Hill Church and the extremely conservative and rigid gender roles and gender expectations, and the mixed martial arts Jesus images that were just difficult to even see. And I know many people who were harmed by that particular system. And one of the arguments, in that day was, and this was, Mark Driscoll's and others, and more of the conservative is, we're having a crisis of masculinity, or crisis of fatherhood, a crisis of manhood. So we need to make sure that we get this, really clear and really solidified. And so there has been, as we have been expanding our understanding of gender and gender roles and gender identities and gender expressions, and really expanding those, for some people that it brings fear, and they don't know what to do, and so they want to fix it, or they want to make it go away. And so this confusion about gender still exists in many people's minds. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about it, and hopefully y'all won't leave confused, but I'm not going to make any promises right now. I'm just gonna give you what I've got, and then we'll go from there. So gender ideas then and now. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the idea that the concept of gender itself is relatively new, as well as our
Relative to what?
understanding of what it means to be a man or a woman in society has changed over time, as well as it varies
How is the
across
concept of
cultures.
gender new?
So this variability in our ideas
What does it mean
about
that
gender
it's new?
is just part of the world we live in, and it's beautiful, and the diversity of God's creation is amazing to me. And so when we have these homogenizing ideas that are out there, I get very sad, because I love the diversity of the beauty of humanity. And so how did we get to this homogenizing place? We can think about that together.
It's bizarre to me that these people will talk about the beauty of God's creation and at the same time take it upon themselves to corrupt God's creation. I mean, truly, it's like if you think that what God created is beautiful, then why are you trying to change it? Why don't you look for inner peace rather than changing your body to try to seek like external validation for something that's missing internally? That makes no sense to me. I mean, if you believe that if you truly believe in God, then why is there just no consideration for the idea that God created you the way you were created for a reason? And I'm not saying that people don't go through journeys and have challenges because, I do think that part of our challenge in life is figuring out who we are, what we value, what we believe, what we like, what we dislike, things like that. But I also don't think that God created synthetic hormones for you to inject into your body to change your body. I think man did that. So, like, plant medicine is one thing, right? Like, the only drugs I do are plants. Like, I mean, and there's a reason for that. Like, I believe that God put things like cannabis, like ayahuasca, like San Pedro, like Cambo Frog, like any of these things here. Like, God put these things here to help us. They put things they like go these are naturally occurring things in the world, right? So how can they be wrong? How can they be bad? They have like healing mushrooms, the same thing. Like they have healing properties. They're here for a reason. They're here to help us. You use them irresponsibly and they're going to bite you in the ass, but you use them responsibly and it's going to help you. So that's different, but I'm not talking about like synthetic man-made hormones and drugs and things like that. Like, that's a totally different thing. That is man interfering in God's creation. And you can do it if you want. You're going to learn a lesson from it, but I just don't understand how you can reconcile like I am fucking with God's creation with man for no good reason with man-made substances that are going to fundamentally change who I am.
But I'd like to go through some of the, maybe then and now kind of ideas that that we interact with as those who are connected by the Christian tradition or by our faith in Jesus, any of those things that have brought you to the Q Christian Fellowship. This idea that gender is created by God, and the historical and beautiful biblical texts of the origin
You're
stories that
you're arguing that God didn't create fire? Seems to me God created fire.
have been written in conversation with these narratives at the time of creation have been interpreted in ways that have privileged maleness and masculinity and have positioned the creation of us, that the text says they are created in the image of God and of us. And it's this multiplicity
Whoa.
that we see. And
Did anyone notice the last item on the list? The erotic self, the erotic other? Oh God, we're gonna get into queer theology, aren't we? Holy shit. What is a biopolitical category? Why is God creating a biopolitical category?
in the creation narrative that is often missed and misinterpreted, as well as this understanding of how the dominance of maleness and masculinity in the surrounding cultures of the time was harmful. And the idea that women were created from the same stuff as a man was in direct opposition to other creation narratives at the time. And so there are many different ways to interpret this narrative of the creation story that is way more inclusive of a diversity and a multiplicity of gender expressions.
Wait, by creation story, aren't they talking like Adam and Eve? Were Adam and Eve gender fluid now?
Gender roles, gender identities, all of those things that we might think of when we think about gender. And so when we look to the past to address, and to determine, right? That's a very deterministic view of gender, that gender is determined by some foundational property, like, for example, created by God. So your gender is determined by this, however God created you. And we have been, raised in this tradition that has emphasized in many ways.
I'm almost done my first
that
beer. We're only like 10 minutes into the
gender
presentation.
and sex are intended for reproduction. And, we can look at many of the biblical texts that like people use to kind of assert this idea of being intended for reproduction. And
I think that's a good guess, Mark.
I like to go to Monty Python personally, every sperm is sacred. And these ideas of, this is the only reason that there are, potentially these differences in human anatomy, right? Our biological sex, right? So we have this intention, right? So God intended this feature of humans to be like this now and forever. And I don't necessarily read that and understand that from the biblical text. And I'm not going to go into like a full-blown, biblical exegesis of anything today. We'll touch on a little bit of scripture later, but my understanding of this idea is, okay, sure, there is reproductive functions that exist in relationship to our body parts.
Well, at least they've admitted that.
However, this mandate that many people hearken to, right? They hearken to this idea of, God said, man and woman, and, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And when they go to that argument about gender, like this is why we have to have men who are men and women who are women, because we need to, fulfill God's command. I ask them, so how do we know when the earth is full? Who decides when the earth is full?
What does that have to do with anything?
What will we do with our bodies when the earth is full?
What does that even mean?
Will these aspects of us that are wonderful and pleasurable and designed to do more than reproduce, but to create amazing and wonderful feelings? And
they're talking about having an orgasm right now, just in case anyone is not reading, but they're talking about sex.
Give us healthy hormones and all of those kinds of things. Is that just going to go away when the earth is full?
Hedonism. Yes.
And
hedonism.
I
Blasphemy.
I wonder about that. Like, how might humans change because of climate change, because of famine, and many other things, right? We don't know.
I'm sorry, that just struck me as like really funny when we were like, they're talking about sex, and then they're like, how will human beings change as a result of climate change? It was just such a non sequitur.
when the earth is going to be full. And, who knows, by then we'll have colonized Mars and, it won't matter. We can still go on and reproduce somewhere else. And, maybe all of the people who are stuck on, a certain way of thinking about gender will all migrate to their own planet. I'm not saying that's what we should do, but, we have lots of room for expansion in our understanding.
I'm just saying, like, if people are migrating to another planet, you guys are not the ones who are going to survive the battle of the fittest. I'm just like, you guys are snowflakes about everything. You refuse to work. You refuse to do anything that's hard. You cry and complain if people call you the wrong name or use the wrong pronouns. You think you're colonizing Mars? Did you see The Martian? What that was that Matt Damon movie, right? Where Matt Damon got stuck on Mars and he had to colonized Mars and had to grow food using his own shit and stuff like that. Like, you guys are not doing the labor required to colonize Mars. I just hope we're all on the same page as this. If we do actually have to go to another planet to colonize, like, I'm going with the conservatives, because even though the conservatives are a pain in the ass, they actually will get their asses up and farm and build buildings and do things that are productive in the world, while you guys are flitting around complaining about pronouns.
Gender. So, back then, in the biblical times, they didn't have this notion of biological sex, right? So, we had these narratives, we had these, creation stories, the Enuma Elish, the biblical text. There are many other, native cultures and many other cultures in the world, the Chinese culture, and we have African cultures who have creation stories that, are very interesting. And they may even talk about, these ideas of
exactly. This is the one
and
time we're having a job
and,
is to
men
your
and
benefit,
women and
Gray
things
One.
like that. But they did not have these notions of biological sex in the same way that we do, right? Because now we have this technology, right? We have the ability to look at human genes. We can see X chromosomes and Y chromosomes. So over time, we had theories and we had beliefs and we had ideas and we had, narratives and all of these notions that were circulated. They were very cultural and societal, right? And then we come into this, the Enlightenment and the era of, the scientific method, and now we can prove it. We can prove that this thing called gender difference exists, and we can know how and why it exists. And so this idea of biological sex as being tied to our sex chromosomes, the X and the Y, is a relatively recent idea in society and culture. And so, it's really important that we don't do this anachronistic thing, right? And try to take the terms of today and put them onto the past, right? We can't fit them in the past into our current understandings and categories. And this is one of the reasons I like to talk about this is to bring this, into where are we now? And so biological sex, I don't know if any of you have read Anne Fausto Sterling's The Five Sexes. I see Kathy and Bobby have just asked about the intersex community. Absolutely, there are many intersex conditions, and there are not just two biological sexes. But when you go to, biology class in high school and you get those, lovely little, I don't know if you remember if you did these in school, 4 boxes and you've got the X and the Y and there's only those options. That is not the way that it works. Our genetics are so much more complicated than that. And biological sex is only one facet of the multifaceted
I need a second beer. Anyone need another beer?
And yet it has been used as a determinant. In other words, people will say that if you have an X and an X or an X and a Y, that determines your status, that determines your social roles, that determines your behaviors, that determines the kinds of sexual pleasure you can experience or not. And I don't hold to that essentializing deterministic view of gender. And yet our bodies are biological. And we do have these features of who we are, like our genes, as well as our body parts, that interact with our understanding of our own gendered self. So we figured out this way, as Spencer just commented, gender determinism, boo, I am with you on that. Gender essentialism, boo, I am with you on that. So we go from this, like, we can know this biological sex. Well, now, we're all about populations and trying to manage populations. In wartime, there was like even more going on with trying to categorize people and
Where's the
classify people,
Jesus?
keep records on people. And so we started assigning gender at birth. Now, that doesn't happen
What does that
everywhere.
have to do with Jesus?
There are many people who have birth certificates that do not have a gender on it. And it depends upon the culture, depends upon when and where. And even in the United States, there are some states that, didn't start putting gender assigned at birth on birth certificates until later. So, we've got this.
Save
now
us,
we,
Jesus.
we come into this world, or we, have to fill out all these documents, and we have this gender assigned at birth thing that was like assigned to us. And now we get into gender identity and gender expression. And these are definitely more recent concepts, right? So we started from, historically in culture, we have these creation narratives, we have the scientific revolution, and then we come up with biological sex and gender assigned at birth. And now we're saying, hey, wait. We have these ideas. We think that gender is a social construct. Scholars have been talking about this for, not forever, but for a while. And so now we're thinking gender is way more complex. It is, it includes like your gender identity, your gender expression, right? Like gender identity, how you perceive yourself, gender expression, how you want to express your gender to other people, how people perceive your gender. That's a whole nother way of thinking about gender. The social
Autumn, the entire presentation is titled, and you can see it at the top, Does Jesus Have a Gender? That is the title of the presentation, Autumn. If Jesus is not mentioned in this presentation, then why is it titled, Does Jesus Have a Gender? We were all here to learn about God, Autumn. I know you're a socialist and you don't believe in God, but we wanted some God today.
construct, right? The things in society that like put you in one box or another, as well as, women do this. I used to get so frustrated at all of the sermon examples, especially about women and shopping, because I was never that woman. So I
An
am
admission that they are a
genderqueer, gender
woman.
fluid. I
An
lived
admission.
as a woman
Oh,
and thought of myself as a woman for many, many years. I have always known that I was queer in some way or another. I have always been shunned for my more masculine traits over the years
Oh, please.
in many
Welcome to the fucking
church
club.
circumstances. And I tried so hard to be that, how my church socially constructed gender. I tried to fit that thing, and failed miserably. That's my greatest failure that I'm very happy that I failed at, because it has brought me here today. I recently, it was in almost a year now, I changed my name officially. And I have to tell you that one of the most—
Why am I hearing more personal stories than I'm hearing about God? So disappointing.
affirming aspects of my name change is how my mom has taken it up. And I know for many people that's a painful thing, because you may not be related with your family in a good way, or your parents have not been very accepting. And as a 78-year-old, I was just really thrilled that my mom embraced Wes and has used it. I kind of had an intermediary phase, and some of you might have met
No
me when I was
one
going by
cares.
MXWE. My initials are WE. They still are, and they always have been.
I just want to say there's about a half hour left in this presentation. If there's no God in this presentation, we might watch another one of these God presentations, because like I was promised Christianity, okay? You guys had a golden opportunity to skewer Christians right between the eye with your bullshit ideology. I was here for it. I thought it was going to be great. And all you're doing is a monologue about your gender evolution. I want Jesus.
And she was like, WE, it's whatever. And I did a hashtag whatever thing for a little while. But when she accepted me as Wes, that was just really a lovely thing. So that's a little aside there on the whole social construct of me trying to be this perfect thing.
Your mother humored you.
And here I am,
because she was too
not
old
that
to
person,
fight your bullshit.
but I am here, and I am excited to be here and still
It's a
here.
little
and still
inconsiderate of me
here.
to say, but like I'm
And then we
annoyed.
have, in addition to a social construct, we have it as a biopolitical category. And a biopolitical category is where that power comes in, that some of you have talked about in your thinking about and writing about your understanding of what is gender. And I think this idea of a biopolitical category is where we see a lot of the work that is being done today in resisting the binary gender categories that are used for political purposes. And it's a lot of interest in thinking about artificial intelligence and how our genders might be read or not read by artificially intelligent systems, or intelligent systems rather. And this is where I do some of my research, is really thinking about the technological implications of these categorizing schemes. And what does that mean? How do we move?
We're gonna get
towards a
to
more
erotic self next, and I'm really
fluid and
nervous about it.
open option? And why do we even, feature this?
You know what this presentation reminds me of? This presentation reminds me of a person who, like, the night before the presentation is like, oh shit, I have a presentation to give tomorrow. I haven't prepared. Let me put some slides together real quick. And they don't prepare an actual presentation. They just make a list of things. And then they put it up and claim it's their presentation. Like, this is what this reminds me of. Anyone that has ever done presenting knows what I'm talking about, because we all wait till the last minute to do our presentations. But when I waited till the last minute to do my presentations, I still busted out a 150 slide deck in a night. I didn't make one slide with bullet points and call it a day.
Category. And I get frustrated time and time again, and this was part of a discussion we were having earlier, when research is being done and gender is included as a variable, but it's only a binary variable. And the people who are doing the research don't think it's a big deal, but it's like, why do you even want that as a variable? Like, why don't you split people up into two groups by like who's short and who's tall? But these things, they have real world consequences, and there's definitely power involved in these biopolitical categories. So I am looking at our time and making sure that I'm moving along. There's a lot on this one slide, right? I'm just talking. It's what I do. I like to talk. So
we understand. We've gotten the message.
So our last one is an erotic self,
Oh, here
an
we
erotic
go.
other, and this is an idea that I really appreciate, and thinking about, especially like trans and gender expansive people and their experiences of themselves. And so often our understanding of gender is thought of in relationship, or rather our understanding of
I didn't need
sexuality
that visual
is
Star
thought
City
of in
fame, but
relationship
okay.
to others. So when we're categorizing, whether someone is heterosexual or homosexual, right, we're imagining that they have an attraction to an other. And so this is where I might have us, if we were in a room together, break up into groups and talk a little bit about, in what ways we think that homosexuality disturbs our notions of gender. And this is one of the—
All right, guys, this is the first funny thing that Autumn has ever said in the chat ever. So we have to just take a moment and appreciate it because it is funny. All right. And yes, the Socialists Always Lie t-shirt was indeed inspired by Autumn. So Autumn, thank you for the capitalism.
the ways of thinking about gender, our erotic self, that I think is yet another category that we can, or yet another thing we can put on the list of our understanding of gender, is not just who am I attracted to, but who do I see myself as an erotic self. And so when I imagine wanting to have erotic experiences with another person, I first see myself
No, no,
as
no,
a
no,
sexual—
no, no, no. Why are you talking about your vision for your erotic experiences with another person? Why? This is crazy. This would be like if I went into a presentation room and said, I like long walks on the beach, and the type of man that I like is very hyper masculine and has a beard and is muscular and can lift heavy furniture and things like that. Like it's like that's not appropriate for a fucking presentation to talk about your sexual fantasies, bro. Beth says, Carlin, someone made a good point. Times two speed would be okay and easy to follow. This person talks slowly. I understand that people want times two speed, but I can't hear and fully process at times two speed. So I'm sorry. I used to do times two speed and it was just I couldn't process it that quickly to the extent that I wanted to process it. So we're just gonna have to suffer. I'm sorry. I understand though. Thank you for the super chat.
person, an erotic person who has passions and wants and desires and feelings and needs. And so this idea of homosexuality is disturbing the norms, right, is very much located in the sense of the erotic self and the erotic other. In my research,
Are you telling me you got a PhD to work through your issues with being a lesbian? Is that really what I'm hearing right now? You had so much self-hatred over the fact that you were a lesbian that you did an entire PhD to work through your feelings about being a lesbian. And how does any of this relate to Jesus? Jesus wasn't a lesbian that we know of. God, if she says Jesus is a lesbian in this presentation, I'm gonna flip the fuck. If she says Jesus was a lesbian in this presentation, I'm going to make a T-shirt that says Jesus was a lesbian.
On dating apps, I had a lovely gay young man who was in conversation and coming out to his mom, and his mom was like questioning his homosexuality and how do you know or whatever, And he was like, this is why I'm homosexual, because I'm a man who loves men. And, and so he very firmly saw himself, his erotic self, as a man. And I thought this was, just really well said in his
If I made a shirt that says Jesus was a lesbian, how many of you would buy it? I've already seen 2 people saying they would buy it. And I would, and you guys know I love a good subversive t-shirt where people don't know what side of the aisle I'm on from the t-shirt alone. I feel like Jesus is a lesbian would hit the mark.
description to me of his conversation with his mom, and I can imagine other people having these kinds of conversations. And his mom just was very much like, if you are a man, then you must love women, and so if you love men, does that mean you are not a man? And this, I think, is a huge, it's a very big problem that I find in youth group conversations about sex and attraction and purity and all of those things. But that's a whole nother conversation. So let's move on.
I'm gonna make a shirt that has Jesus like looking longingly at Mary Magdalene. That says Jesus is a lesbian. Jesus was a lesbian with Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I definitely won't get canceled for that.
I would like to hear your thoughts. So you can type them in. We're not going to go into breakouts, but take a few minutes to think about it. Maybe, just pull in, your ideas of gender and identities, what you've maybe
Why are they
experienced
doing
here at
another
the conference,
breakout?
maybe what you've read, and just think about, how do we know what is true about gender and about identities? So if you want to write that in there in the chat, I will put on another song.
Oh God.
And
all right, fast forward through the chat breakout. Do 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 boom boom.
life go-to albums lately, Wildness, and it's just life on earth. So thrilled of someone, I'm trying to find it here, someone said they felt like they were in college again, and they love that. I'm really glad, because this is just who I am. Finally, I realized that I could do this for a job, and that's cool. But I'm very glad.
I'm very glad that you can con us
River,
all into watching a presentation that's
I
not
just want
about
to let you know
Jesus.
that my tattoo artist name is River, and a great name, and I love that it connects with your sense of your gender identity as well. But River comments that we only know a fraction of what is real, and it's so fascinating, I think, especially within many of our experiences with Christianity, that the emphasis on truth is very much rooted in particular interpretations of particular texts at particular times in particular ways, right? And so many of you are relativists in many ways, in thinking about that our understanding of what is true is dependent upon cultures. If we think of gender as a social construct, right, then it is, socially and culturally dependent, right? What is true about gender and identities, how we interact with them and experience them in the world. So there is, absolutely some truth to that. And then, others talked about, it's an internal sense, or I'm not going to judge somebody else's understanding of their gender. And all of this is this idea, and yes, this is the college part, So you're back in college now. Epistemology. How do we know what we know? And in our tradition, and especially in those that have kind of leaned more towards mysticism, there is a lot of sense of knowledge as revelation, that it is revealed to us
She's a
by God.
Gnostic.
And some of you mentioned that it's a
Hidden
conversation
knowledge.
that you and God have. However, we live in a pluralist, multicultural, multi-faith world, and these, truths, right, are debated and contested. So, we have fights and arguments, and and we exist in that space as LGBTQ Christians who, we are here because we want to be in community with one another. And there are places where what we know is true about ourselves is labeled false. And some of you may have experienced harm because of that. And I am absolutely not a gender determinist or a gender essentialist in any way. And how we know what we know is changing. And I think it might have been River that brought this up again later in the conversation, not to pick on River too much, but questions of can anything be true have been raised in your comments, and I love it. John mentioned observing patterns, right? And this is part of what we do. We observe patterns, we try to categorize things, sorting things out. It's what we do. We try to figure these things out. And so will we know more in the future? Is there something about gender that is fundamentally fixed and knowable? And that's what I'm not sure about. And so as River said, someday science must tell us how hormones in utero, our genes, our bodies, sensitivity, all these things, right, impact. Someday we may be able to tell scientifically. One of the research projects that's going on is to try to identify through functional MRI a trans brain. And first of all, why are we asking these questions, right? What are the purposes of knowing this? And I have to tell you that, there are some people who would want to know. I mean, if I knew that I was genderqueer younger, would that have changed things? If there was a device that I could use that would tell me the truth about some aspect of me, would I have wanted that? I think that these are important questions for us to think about when we think about how do we know? How do we know what we know? And I am going to pay attention to the time here and see how much time we have left. It looks
Hopefully
like
enough
we are
time to
at
talk
the end
about
of our
Jesus.
time
What?
almost, and I need to get into a little bit more of this material for you. So looking at Jesus and the way that Jesus interacted
Finally,
with gender,
we got to
we see the
Jesus,
story of the
guys.
woman at the well, and he absolutely disturbed notions of what was expected of men and women in society in his day. And we also see transgressing of boundaries that were cultural boundaries,
What?
gender role expectation boundaries, and this is one of the things that I love about seeing how Jesus interacted. Right, Jesus transgressed. Right, I love it. He's like, those boundaries, like, forget that. We're not gonna take a minute to discuss this, but if Jesus has a gender.
Oh my God. Babada says, this is straight up Maoism. It's all about stripping everything away from the human experience up to the point where only thing left is the state. I'm not convinced about that just yet, Babada, but I will say, like there's been, and the reason I say that I'm not convinced of it is this person has given us nothing. We have nothing to work with. We only have 10. We've just got into Jesus finally after 50 minutes. But I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much.
Right? How do we, if Jesus is God and God is all of these things, right? God made humans in their image, right? God non-binary. Some people say God is non-binary, which absolutely. But
God is
we
non-binary.
have Jesus.
Breaking
is
news.
a human incarnated with a human body that likely has chromosomes, and there are some people who are trying to argue like, well, Jesus had to be intersex, or Jesus had to be, something, right? So looking at this ancient icon, so we're going back a little bit to think about this idea of whether Jesus has a gender. And this is an ancient icon. I love this. And if I were to describe this, he looks a little bit feminine, like especially according to today's standards.
No. Let me do a poll in the chat. Does Jesus look feminine? Feminine? Yes? No. I don't think this looks particularly feminine. I think that Jesus has a beard, and just because someone has longer hair, it was much more common for men to have longer hair then. I wouldn't say that's feminine. I mean, I guess maybe you could say like Jesus is holding his hand in like a little bit of an effeminate way, but I don't come on. I like how the whole premise of this is like 50 minutes of like rambling about their tattoos and their sex life, and then we finally get to Jesus and they're like God is non-binary, trust me, bro. I just finished my PhD, trust me, bro.
He's got the longer hair and definitely a little bit more feminine here. And then we've
disagree.
Hopefully we have the other picture there. Oh, it got in there twice. So before I go on to the next image, I have another ancient icon. This is one of my favorite kind of thoughts about how to understand and represent and to think about our identities. And it's definitely how we represent our material ties to historical events and social structures. And in the New Testament, we see there is no longer Jew or Greek, there's no longer slave or free, there's no longer male and female.
Wow.
And it's interesting there because it's not or, it's and.
How do Christians in the chat respond to this quote? There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male and female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. I want some defense from the Christians in the chat. How do you respond to this quote? What is the context? Can someone educate me about the context of this quote? Defend your gods, Christians. I'm waiting patiently. In the meantime, mount that like button for me if you would be so kind. If you're not going to defend God and Jesus, please mount the like button. All right. Well, what is the context then? You can't just, bro, You can't just come in and say, out of context, trust me, bro, because that's the same argument this person just made with God is non binary, trust me, bro. Give us more. You haven't done it yet. So, Steven is saying this means there is no division among those things. But, like, if there's no division between man and woman, LK says, I think he was saying the imaginary status we put on people is an illusion. We are all under God. Maybe. Well, Beth says he was speaking of the soul, not the body. Well, Beth, that kind of leads into their argument, though, because they say that gender is located in the soul. So you kind of just made his argument if that's the argument you're making. And I'm not sure that's what you intended to do. Victor, not my Victor, different Victor, says, our identities as children of God are superior to all other identities. It's an equality thing. All right, that could be. All right, guys, if the answer is about the soul, then you just these people win. You guys understand that, because I see a lot of you saying this is about the soul, this is about the soul. That's literally the argument that the woke left makes, guys. That gender is separate from biological sex because gender exists in the soul. So if you guys are making the argument, and again, I'm not a Christian, so I don't care, but like if Christians are making the argument that gender exists in the soul, you are literally making the same argument as the woke left. I just want everyone to be clear on that. The quote does not say equal. People are saying this says we're all equal in the eyes of God. The quote does not say equal. If there is more to the quote where they say something about it being equal, then you need to give me the full quote in the chat, because the quote says nothing about equal, so I have no reason to believe that's true right now. You got to bring receipts, guys. You can't just make stuff up. All right. I'm trying to help you make your argument stronger, but people aren't listening. You cannot just make stuff up and have no evidence for it and have me take that seriously, guys. I'm sorry. Trendlin, that's literally the argument the Wokes left is making, so you might want to rethink that. All right, guys. Well, as of right now, they've got you. Again, I don't care. I'm not a Christian. It makes no difference to me. But as of right now, there is not a single person in the chat that has presented me with any evidence, any receipts, any expanded quotes other than trust me, bro. You guys got to present receipts, man. You don't get off. You don't get off just because you're watching this right now. Not okay. You're not giving me any information. Put the quote in the chat. Don't just say, trust me, bro, pinky swear, promise. I don't care if you're sending in a super chat. Mark, I saw your answer several times. You presented me with an answer that does not align with the quote that I'm seeing on the screen, which I said. So if there is more to the quote, then put it in the chat. I'm trying to help you guys make a cohesive argument. I am saying, and I feel like I'm being pretty lenient, there is not a single person in the chat that is able to provide me with the expanded quote or to give the context with receipts. I have a hard time believing this. I mean, right now, Autumn is kicking all your guys' ass, to be really honest. Nope, I can't go to Bible Gateway because it's your guys' job to provide receipts. And if you need to space it into multiple chats, you can do that, but it's your job to provide receipts for the arguments that you're making. I'm not going to make your argument for you. Again, I am not a Christian. I'm not making your arguments for you, Christians. Okay, online subscriber, Galatians 3 something. O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that ye should not obey the truth before the eyes of Jesus Christ has... Okay, but that doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me anything. Come on, be fucking better. This is a completely different passage. Be better. Nope, you're doing trust me, bro. I don't want trust me, bro. Okay, as of right now, I have to say the Christians in the chat have failed completely and totally because you guys are not listening. You're not providing any evidence beyond trust me, bro. Provide a passage. Provide an expanded quote. Provide something. No, it's not too limiting because I've told you 15 ways from fucking Sunday. Paste it into multiple chats. Stop making excuses for why you are incapable of providing receipts. We've already looked at this and it doesn't say what you think it does. This does not disprove what this person said. This is like the fourth time someone's pasted this in the chat, and guys, just because you paste something in the chat doesn't mean you are advancing your argument. This does not advance your argument in any way. Terry says he is saying that those characteristics do not matter, not that they don't exist. Well, that's not what it reads like, Terry. That's not what it reads like to me at all. I feel like I'm giving you a lot of wiggle room here, Christians, and you're just not doing this one for me. You're just not. Okay, 24 says, therefore the law was our disciplinarian until Christ came so that he might be reckoned as righteous by faith. That doesn't make a difference. 25, but now that faith has come, we are no longer subject to a disciplinarian. That doesn't make a difference. 26, for in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith. Now we might be getting somewhere. LK finally starting to get somewhere. Do we have 27, LK? Because apparently you're the only person that I can actually follow instructions. 27, as many of you were baptized into Christ, have closed yourself in Christ. There is no... See? And now we're actually getting somewhere, guys. Why was that like pulling teeth? I'm being serious. I don't want to hear any whining. I don't want to hear any complaining. I don't want to hear any... which is what you guys have been doing for the last 5 minutes since I've been asking you to do this. If you're going to make an argument, come with receipts. This person, for all their faults, came with receipts, and now LK, after 5 fucking minutes of me yelling at you, has actually provided additional context in the chat, which is where I asked for it the first time. Trust me, bro, is not going to do what you think it's going to do. You have to come with evidence. Nope, that was the first time. Wrong. False. I paid attention to every single chat, and all of them were, trust me, bro, pinky swear, this is what it means, because that's the only way you assholes argue. The only person who has a gold star right now in the chat is LK, because LK listened to instructions, which was to go get the expanded quote and provide receipts. Not, trust me, bro, I promise this is what it said, provided receipts. Now, I'm not even fully on board yet, if I'm honest about it, because all of you argued for way, way, way too long before any of you actually provided receipts, now I don't trust any of you except for LK. So every single person that just said, trust me, bro, trust me, bro, trust me, bro, your credibility has been diminished in my eyes. The only person I trust right now is LK, and I'm not even still all the way there yet. Nope, you said, trust me, bro. You said, all these people are like, I told you. No, you didn't. You're still not listening. You did not. You said, trust me, bro. This is what it means. Does everyone understand what I mean when I say provide receipts? We're going to take a step back for a moment. Does everyone understand why providing receipts is important? This isn't Romans. Why are you providing a receipt from Romans when this is not Romans? Who understands and can explain why providing receipts is important? Who can understand and explain why providing receipts is important? If you cannot provide receipts that explicitly, so you gave me a receipt that was not what I asked for, thank you. If you cannot provide me receipts that explicitly speak to the point that is being made, then you are not doing what is required to beat these people. Your job is to refute the argument being made. It is not to invent some other argument that you find more convenient and then refute an argument that you made up that has no relation to the argument being made. This is not the argument being made. If you invent a new argument that has nothing to do with the topic being discussed, and you ignore the topic being discussed to invent an entire new argument because you're more comfortable refuting the new argument rather than the topic being discussed, that is a logical fallacy, and you will lose to these people. You cannot just make shit up and pretend that you're doing what was asked. It is not my fault that you are incapable of understanding extremely simple instructions, and it's not my fault that you don't know your own theology well enough to refute someone who obviously doesn't understand it. I am not a Christian. It makes no difference to me if the woke ideology bastardizes your entire faith, and if you can't make arguments that refute these people, then you fucking deserve it. If you are incapable of contending with the arguments that these people are making in a real way, you deserve to have your entire faith bastardized and taken over. And don't come whining and complaining to me when it happens, because all you had to do was refute a very simple argument, and you refused to do it because you would rather insult me than refute the fucking argument, which makes me think that you can't refute the argument because either you're not smart enough, you don't understand the assignment, or you just don't care. Which is it? It doesn't matter what you have in your soul. You did not refute the argument. You made up a different argument and then came up with a solution to that because you didn't refute it. This is the last thing I'm going to say before we wrap up this presentation. Christians, I was rooting for you. I was on your team. I set you up with everything that you needed in order to refute this person. This person spent 50 minutes not even making a real argument. And then you had one fucking job. You had one fucking job. Your job was to refute the passage on the screen, and you whined and complained and cried and said, "Trust me, bro." And you did this for several fucking minutes, to the point where, Christians, I'm no longer on your side. I was on your side. I gave you every chance to do it. And all I was met with was whining and complaining and whining and complaining and trust me, bro, trust me, bro, trust me, bro, and making arguments that had nothing to do with the argument actually being made. Do you understand why this is frustrating for me? Because if you can't make an argument on the faith that you claim to hold, I don't actually believe most of you are real Christians now. Because if you can't make an argument based on your dearly committed faith, then why would I actually believe you believe the things you claim to believe? The only person that understood the purpose of the assignment was LK, and that was it. Now we're going to continue.
And if we think about that in terms of all of our identities,
I mean, you know what?
The AM.
I don't believe in God. I absolutely do believe in God. I can explain my faith apparently a lot better than most Christians can explain their faith. I can explain what my God believes a lot easier than most Christians can explain what they believe. But to the underlying subtext of your point, I am not a Christian. I do not believe in the Christian God. And so it makes absolutely no difference to me if the Christian church is overtaken by the woke ideology. They will have done it to themselves.
And is interesting there to me. And we are all one in Christ Jesus. So here's the one, not Neo from The Matrix. If any of you have watched that recently, this is Jesus. And he is going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And I am just really disappointed that my icon did not show up in this. So there is another icon, and we will have to save that for another day.
Really disappointing, guys.
But
honestly,
there are
really
new things
disappointing
that Jesus is doing. There is another icon that I like to show that shows Jesus as very masculine. And the reality is, it is just a fold over of an ancient icon. And then I wonder what's going to happen with our technology. How are we going to be in the future?
If you pick apart the Bible, you can make it say anything you want, but a large is required comprehensive understanding. Well, no, you don't have a comprehensive understanding because you weren't able to simply refute the quote. I'm going to tell you this. People who actually understand what they're talking about, they don't need pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages to refute simple ideas. If the Christians in the chat are going to whine and complain about the tone I'm using to talk to you right now, no, you didn't. You posted a completely wrong quote from a completely wrong passage. Don't think I wasn't paying attention. I know exactly what you posted. The lesson, oh, I did see it. You did not post what I asked for, and you still are whining and complaining and whining and complaining and whining and complaining. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. The lesson that the Christians in the chat should be taking from this exercise is that it is your job to make better arguments. It is your job to understand and to be able to explain what they are getting wrong in a cohesive way that speaks explicitly and directly. And now you're getting timed out because you're pissing me off. That speaks explicitly and directly to the point that is being made. If you can't do that, that is your fault because you either are not listening or do not understand your own faith as well as you think you do. Or it could be a combination of the two. But if you are not willing to do what is required, which is basic, guys, it's not even hard. And then you want to whine and complain and whine and complain and whine and complain about the fact that I'm not giving you the gold star you think you deserve because you did not do what was required. That is your fault. You should know your own faith well enough to be able to make a succinct argument about why this person is wrong. This person didn't even make a cohesive argument, and their argument was still more compelling than literally anything I saw in the chat. That is your fault. It is your responsibility to fix that. I am not a Christian. It makes no difference to me if the Christian church falls. It makes no difference to me if the Christian church is taken over by these people. It should make a difference to you. You should be wanting to make the best argument that you can, but instead you're whining and complaining and whining and complaining and whining and complaining and running away and crying. Do you think that's going to beat them? Because this person beat you without trying today. No, Mark, you didn't, because you didn't provide receipts. And what you don't seem to be listening to is that you did not provide proof. You provided no evidence. You provided no receipts. I have read the New Testament at least 5 fucking times. You did not provide receipts. Your job is to provide receipts. If you can't provide receipts and you just say, trust me, bro, pinky swear, promise, you are going to lose. And that's exactly what you did. That's exactly what you did in every single chat. I like you, Mark, but I'm not letting you off the hook on this one because you did not provide receipts. If the Christian church falls to the woke left, it will be 100% the fault of Christians for allowing it to happen because you underestimated these people. You didn't listen to them. You didn't understand the arguments that they were making. And you didn't realize that people like me don't give a flying F.
Sure, if we have a cyborg future of some sort that allows us to modify even more so our gender expression, our gender identity to be perceived differently than we may feel at times, and to change those things up. And
there is no point in emailing me. I'm not going to read it because I don't care. I don't care. There are a lot of things I care about. Saving the Christian church ain't one of them. That's your job. I've shown you how to do it. If you're going to continue to whine and complain and whine and complain and whine and complain, then you're undercutting your own abilities to do your job. But it makes no difference to me.
And then, we have so many images and ideas that are described in the Bible that are indescribable, right? We don't have words for them. And so that's why I really love what River said, right? We only can perceive so much. And yet there is so much more. There is so much more out there. And I like to think of gender as a galaxy. And I am a gender explorer as well as genderqueer and gender fluid. And so I'm just thrilled and honored to be on this journey of gender exploring with all of you all, and so wish that I could be with you in person. And I apologize for not leaving time for Q&A, but if you want to drop any questions in the chat, I will also go on Whova and look at any questions there, and I will try to message you all with any responses. So please post any last minute questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will stay on here for a few more minutes for any questions that y'all might have.
All right, let's see if there are any questions that come in. Oh, I guess they're talking still.
Right now I'm enjoying Otherwise Christian, Mix Chris Page. They and I are presenting at another conference in February, and the best books to start with on gender. There's so many. I would like to, for those who want book recommendations, if you can send me a message in the Whova community, I will put together some resources to share with you all. And Irene is asking a little bit more. I apologize for not spending as much time.
No, this is not woo.
The woman at
this
the
is
well
not woo at
story
all.
Of Jesus disrupting
This is Gnostic,
gender.
but it's not woo.
Jesus, at the time, men were not supposed to talk, women were not supposed to talk to men in that kind of context. And Jews were not supposed to talk to Samaritans. And as a Samaritan woman, she was also, there by herself, and that was, frowned upon socially in the time. And so Jesus, in many ways, by even having a conversation, transgressed many of the boundaries of the expected gendered behaviors.
Well, she did give a passage to support it, though, is the problem. She did.
And Irene, if
and it was not adequately refuted, to be honest.
Community, I will send you some resources on that interpretation. And thank you, Spencer, for putting the Otherwise Christian in there. And anyone else who would like to share something. I really wish I could see all your faces.
All right, I can't watch this anymore. I can't. Sorry. We're going to have talk for a second. That person's presentation was pathetic. That was pathetic. That was legitimately pathetic. That was one of the worst presentations I've ever seen. That presentation had no hypothesis. That presentation had no direction. That presentation didn't really impart that much knowledge. And yet still, that presentation made more of a case for why Jesus doesn't have a gender than the Christians in my chat made about why Jesus does have a gender. Now, this is a problem, guys. Yeah, Beth, I saw your chats. It was the same thing that LK sent in earlier, which is fine. But it strikes me that people are not understanding the importance of actually bringing evidence that speaks directly to the arguments being made. Why is this confusing? Is anyone confused about why I'm saying that you did not bring evidence that spoke directly to the arguments being made? And I don't want to hear anyone in the chat making up their own separate arguments. If you do not bring receipts when you make arguments, you are going to lose. Telling someone you just don't understand is not a winning argument. Telling someone you need to go do a Bible study is not a winning argument. Providing a passage that is from a completely different book is not a winning argument. Saying, here's what it means, I promise, when you don't provide any additional context that supports your point at all, is not an argument. Saying, my pastor said so, is not a winning argument. Again, it makes no difference to me, Christians, if you lose. But the larger problem that I've identified today is that people seem to not understand how to make winning arguments. And that, to me, is a lot more problematic than whether or not Jesus had a gender, because I really don't care. If you want to be able to beat the woke left, you have to be better than them. You have to be better at arguing the points than they are. And the person we saw today was horrible at arguing their points. Horrible. Bottom of the basement. Like discount gutter bin arguments. And yet still, they out-argued the vast majority of the people in my chat, which gives me pause as to whether or not I have taught you well. It gives me pause as to whether or not I am actually doing my job, which is to make sure that you can go out into the real world and make arguments and articulate information that helps fight back against the woke left. This is the easiest place in the world to make those arguments. This is the easiest place in the world to practice. This is the easiest place in the world to try. But if the woke left understand how to use your Christian Bible better than you do, then they are going to win and you are going to lose, and it will be entirely your own fault because you did not do what was required to win. The people who win are the ones that show up. Today, even though the woke left showed up in the worst possible way that they can possibly show up, the Christians in the chat didn't show up at all. So the woke left still kicked your ass today. So the smart thing that people should do is to take this as a lesson and show up better next time. Listen to the argument that's being made. Don't make up your own separate argument just because it's a more convenient one to argue. Listen to the argument being made and actually refute it. And if you can't do that in a succinct way, there is no reason that anyone needed a whole page worth of fucking chats to make an argument if you actually understand what you're talking about. Saying they're twisting scripture when you do not provide an accurate version of scripture or an accurate interpretation means nothing. Every single one of you should be better than this. And if you're not better than this, you're going to lose. So you should get better than this. The people that win are the people that want it more. If you don't want it, no skin off my back. I will just know not to ever help Christians again if they aren't going to show up. Because why should I care more about saving your church than you do? Why does the QAnon shaman know more about your Bible than most Christians does? The QAnon shaman's not a Christian. Why am I fighting harder for you to be able to show up and defeat these people than you are? If you don't want to win, why are you even coming to the presentations? Why aren't you just going out and enjoying your Friday night? I read everything in the chat, Beth. If you don't want to do what's required to win, then you will lose, and it will be entirely your own fault. And if you're more concerned with me hurting your feelings by telling you that, then you will lose, and it will be entirely your fault. If you need me to help you make better arguments, I'm happy to help you do that. But if you are not going to show up and you're just going to complain, then why would I waste my time? Why would anyone waste their time? Why would anyone help you if you're just going to whine and complain and insult? Do better next time. That's all I'm asking. I'm frustrated too, Beth. I don't mind saying, although you tried. I will give you that. You tried a lot more than most. I don't understand why people are arguing with Carlin and not the person making the presentation, because I'm easy. Here is why Christians and conservatives argue with me rather than the people making the presentation, because it's easy for them to insult me. It's easy for them to take out their frustrations on me. I get to be the fucking punching bag when they don't know what to do because they aren't listening. That's why they're arguing with me. Because they don't want to do the work. They know I'm right. They don't want to do the work themselves. They're being fucking lazy. They're not listening to what's being asked. And so they take out their frustrations on me. You didn't insult me, Beth. I'm saying other people did. They take out their frustrations on me instead of doing what's required to win, because they don't want to do what's required to win. If you can't convince me, then you sure as shit can't convince anyone else. And if you can't convince anyone else, and I'm the easiest person in the world to convince. If you can't convince anyone else, then you lose. Hope you're comfortable with that. That's reality. So show up better next time. Next time, by the way, is going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. I don't know what we're watching yet. I will find something. I will find something suitable. Ain't going to be about God, I'll tell you that. That is all we have for right now, guys. I'm going to go and relax and watch a movie or something and not think about Christianity at all. And I hope that the people who made shitty arguments today show up with better arguments next time. And if you want to bitch and complain about me, well, that's a strategy, but it just means you're going to lose. Be no skin off my back if you do. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow for Bitchcraft at 3 p.m. in my community. We'll see you at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.